Look, I'm not an economist, first of all, so what I'm going to give you is a layman's interpretation of this fundamental change in thinking, which has first been raised by the small nation of Bhutan, which decided that production isn't everything in life. And what you really were trying to do as a country, you were trying to secure the overall happiness of the population, which, for politicians is a great thing because it keeps getting you elected. And if you want to be a philosopher, you can say this goes back to the, Aristotle and Socrates and all of this about why are we here and what are we looking for. But to put it in a modern context, we are measuring the results of our human activity at a governmental level by looking at production and consumption. Now, take two industries. Take armaments on the one hand and take tourism on the other hand. You have an industry like armaments and you can measure its output very easily. It's physical, it's being sold. A lot of it's sold without going into the system, but you get a fairly good idea. And this is producing something in terms of jobs and in terms of value for society, in terms of its material value. But look at the result of what you're doing. You're producing something, the consequence of which you could argue is not helping our world at all. Take tourism on the other hand. What is tourism about? It's about understanding between people. It's about people being able to visit other people, whether it's for business, so that they can do trade, which produces wealth in the economy, so that when they trade, they don't go to war with each other, they have peaceful relationships with each other. It's so that people can understand each other when they go for leisure, for vacation. It's about that money funneling into communities, and communities being able to benefit from the wealth which comes in, and from the preservation, when it's done properly and it's sustainable, of their way of life, their culture, their heritage, all of the things that have a value. And let me give you a further example. It's quite interesting. We're just coming up to the World Economic Forum, and I've been fortunate to be going to the World Economic Forum with WTTC and with WTO for the last 15 years. And one year, a small group of us had a discussion with Premier Kuan Yew, who just stepped down in Singapore, but one of the great statesmen of our time. And that's what the Davos Forum does for you. You have that possibility. And somebody asked him, Martin Sorrell of WPPP, asked him the question, if you could do anything again differently, what would you do? And without hesitation, this great man said, I wouldn't have destroyed the buildings. I thought I was creating a modern state, but I actually destroyed something which had an immense value to our being as a people, our culture, our heritage, even though I was putting in place incredible, efficient, modern way of life. Now, I think that's a very good example of what is a measure of gross national happiness. Now, the French president has actually taken this to the level where he set up a commission last year, chaired by Stiglitz, a Nobel Prize winning economist, ex-IMF, ex-World Bank economist, who's done a lot of soul searching about what are the good and bad things about development. And that commission, which is going to report out in the coming months, is actually looking at how can you put that Bhutan value into a modern economy. Prime Minister Cameron has started in the UK a national, it's not a referendum, but it's an inquiry on what is the happiness that people are looking for from the big society. This kind of thinking is creeping in. And the fundamental point that I want to make, and I'm sure others are making, Taleb Rifai, the Sec-Gen of UNWTO, has just come back from a visit in Bhutan where he was talking about this issue. Tourism is probably the best industry for producing happiness of travelers and of people visited because of the culture, the wealth, and the value-added transformation that comes from such a visit. And if you want a measure of that, look at the first thing that's agreed after warring countries make peace. The very first thing is to start tourism and to move people between different countries so they'll begin to build a sense of relationship. So that's the issue, and I think we've tried to identify in that report, and also Sean Foster, a collaborator, close collaborator, and I have written a piece for the World Economic Forum's competitiveness report on this very subject, on green growth, travelism, and the pursuit of happiness. So I think it fits in.